So this time we're going to continue to develop our character model here. I want to make sure that we continue to work with the fingers, which is something that we left off last time. I'll press 1 to work on normal mode, and I'm going to mesh smooth options box. Make sure that these are disabled. And let's go to smooth. This is going to be the last time we smooth the model. And as you can see, it's really high poly right now. So we're going to reduce the poly count for this model by deleting some of the edges for the model, because this is a little too high. Might even be high for film. But let's go ahead and develop the fingers a bit more, which are still really basic. So we want to make sure that our fingers look more realistic, which is really just about shaping the area. So in this video I'm going to show you how to just develop the finger a bit more, just a little bit more. And the fingers may need to be a little longer. So I'll show you this, and we're going to make sure we're just going to reduce the poly count for our model by deleting some of the edges, some unnecessary edges that were not necessarily needed for the model. So if you wanted this model to be a game model, I'll really keep it really on the lower end, because right now it's a bit over 10,000 polys, and for a game model you want it to be lower than that, maybe 8,000. For a game model you want to keep it under 8,000, I would say, in this case, or for a model like this, which is not really too complicated, so you want to make sure it's maybe less than 8,000. In this case I'll keep it in between a film and game model. Let me select that edge loop, go to offset edge loop tool, and if you click on that edge loop you see that these appear, and if you drag you can get those to get closer to it, and then let go. Let's do that with this area. I'm just adding these just so that when we bend the fingers that there's more geometry there for the animation. So I'll keep this model in between a film and game model. It's going to be about 12,000 maybe in the end, which is not really, if you want this to be a game model I would recommend keeping it under 8,000, just because this is not really a very complicated model. Let's go ahead to edit mesh and extrude those. We'll scale that down. I'll keep the fingernails really basic, and actually since this guy has gloves you don't really need to create the fingernails, so I'm just showing this. If you really wanted, if he wasn't wearing gloves, I would make the fingernails this way. So I'm just showing that now if you wanted him to have fingernails. But in this case he really does not need to have fingernails because he is wearing gloves. So just watch for this part. I'll just do it to show it to you. But as I said, you do not need to add fingernails for him since he's wearing gloves, so you wouldn't see the fingernails. But if this was a game model I would probably do the fingernails this way and keeping them really basic. So I'm just doing this to show you. You don't have to do it. So this is how you would do some really simple fingernails for a game model. But in our case we do not need to make fingernails because he's wearing gloves, so he does not need to have fingernails. So at this point we want to start to, so I recommend that you do the exact same thing for the fingers, for the other fingers, except for the fingernails. So I'll skip that for now, and I'll just do it outside of videotaping. And we want to start to reduce the topology for our model. So I'm going to delete edge vertex for that edge loop. What you want to do is you want to remove the edges that are not really needed, that are not really affecting the shape of the model too much. But you also don't want to remove edges in areas that are going to be animated. Like I can remove this one because this area is not really going to have that much animation. Or this area right here, I can delete that edge. So I do not delete any edges where you are going to use to bend areas like this. You do not want to delete that one. I'm gonna got this edge closer to that. I'm going to select that edge loop. I'm going to use this slide edge loop tool, and I'm going to use my middle mouse button. I'm going to select that one, press G, and I'll get that closer there. Just so that when we bend the elbow, there's more geometry there. So for places like the elbow or the wrist, you do not want to remove much of the geometry. You want to make sure that you keep that. I'll probably keep that one for now, since I'm going to keep my model, as I said, in between probably film and game. It's going to be over maybe about 12,000 in the end. If you want this to be a game model, I do recommend that you go ahead and remove more edges than I'm going to, especially the edges that are not necessary. I'm going to remove this one. And I can always select the whole loop and use my slide edge loop, or just move those down a bit. So for the remaining of the video, I'm just going to continue and delete some of the edges. So in this video, it's just going to be about deleting edges, just to make sure that you can reduce the topology for the model. And if you don't really care about the poly count for the model, then just go ahead and leave it this way. But if it's something that you're going to use for a game, I would definitely go ahead and delete a lot of edges, especially for the ear area. If this is a game model, the ears are going to be a lot more simpler. If you're going to use this for a film, then the poly count that we have right now works fine for a film. But even like that, you probably reduce it just a tiny bit, since it's not really a complicated model to begin with. So I'm going to continue and reduce the amount of polygons that we have for this model, and the next time we're going to continue to model the rest of the pieces that we haven't modeled yet. So we're almost done, we're almost close to being done with the model. So in the next video I'm going to show you probably how to do the hat and the hair and the beard and whatever else we need to create.